So I promised you something fun, and here this week we have it. This is the 2018 Chevrolet Camaro 50th Anniversary Hot Wheels Edition. Painted in Orange Crush Orange. The Hot Wheels package is mostly pretty much an appearance package. You've got nicer wheels, you've got some side skirts, black accents, interior coloring with orange leather, and of course Hot Wheels kick plates there in the door. And orange seatbelts, which is always a good thing. You gotta love colored seatbelts. I haven't had a new Camaro on the channel, so this will be a good opportunity just to kind of test it. We've got the Goodyear Eagle F1 run flat tires, which are pretty sticky, pretty grippy. Performance exhaust, magnetic ride control, Brembo brakes, lots of goodies on this Camaro. I think it looks pretty awesome in this orange, and it's also a 6-speed manual, which is always a good thing. Let's take it for a drive. It's been a while since we've had a good V8. This one sounds good too. We have very limited visibility out of the back, as always. But, you know, you get used to it. And when I first drove this car, I was like, man, I really can't see out of this thing. But once you get accustomed to the sight lines and basically where to place the car on the road, it's not that bad. The driving position is fantastic. I love this slightly smaller wheel wrapped in Alcantara. It feels really good in hand, and it just comes right up to your chest. You can sit nice and low in the car. Plenty of adjustability with the seat. As traffic goes by, we've got some pretty cool performance options in the gauge cluster. You can see oil temperature, oil pressure, trans fluid temp, tire temp, as well as a little G meter. Thing rips. You've got to get a Camaro with some type of an exhaust, whether it's a GM performance exhaust or aftermarket. This one really sounds good, and it also has active rev matching, which does a pretty good job. Sometimes some of the shifts are a little bit harsh, a little bit hard. But that's all kind of the character of the V8, and it gives you a little bit of a challenge to drive the manual transmission, which makes it just a little bit more satisfying when you do get it right. As it is, without rev matching, you can easily heel toe downshift and rev match yourself. Tons and tons of grip. We've got it in sport mode right now with the magnetic ride control. To be perfectly honest, I can't really tell the difference between sport mode and tour and track in this car. The suspension always does a pretty good job controlling body motion and giving you a lot of grip. This thing is quick though. Sounds really nice too. Gears 1 to 5 are spaced nice and close. 6 is your overdrive. Transmission is nice. Gets a little bit notchy until it warms up, but it's a really sweet shifter, and the touch points on it are really nice. It's wrapped in Alcantara. Let's do a little 0 to 60 here while we can. good second. I will say this Camaro really does a good job putting its power down. Very little drama, very little wheel spin, unless if you really want it to. But there's quite a lot of grip, which is awesome. Put rev match back on there. Take this on an entrance ramp, see how it does around some corners. Awesome traction there. Little wiggle from the back end. This new Camaro is so well balanced. It has a ton of grip, a ton of just confidence behind the wheel. You can really, really hustle it. And I think this Hot Wheels edition has a little bit of a sense of humor too, which is it's always important with a sports car. Hear this under a bridge. The torque band is really pretty linear, so until you look down at the speedometer, you really don't know quite what you're doing. But it gets up there pretty quickly. Tons of torque from the 6.2 liter V8. What else do you want? Maybe a Mustang? I do think that GM Performance has done a really good job getting the balance right in these cars. The handling, the braking, the performance, the straight line performance it's all kind of in harmony. Really a lot of fun to heel toe downshift right there. This is just a proper driver's car. It's fun. I think it looks good. Sounds fantastic. Overall grip levels are really, really pretty high. It's quite impressive. Doesn't even break a sweat. Let's talk a little bit about comfort. The suspension is pretty good. I would say, sometimes it feels a little bit floaty. It gets thrown off by some larger road imperfections, and you get kind of a little blah. But most of the time, that's a technical term for it, by the way. Most of the time, it's pretty well composed. You can feel a subtle difference in magnetic ride control when you switch it between tour to track. But overall, we kind of just did that corner back there in sport mode, and I've left it in sport mode pretty much the entire time I've been driving this car. And I honestly really can't tell that much of a difference. I can't really speak to gas mileage. I haven't really been trying to get good fuel mileage in this. It's rated for 16 miles to the gallon in the city and 24 on the highway, 19 combined. There's a little bit of wind noise and road noise and tire noise on the highway here. These run flats definitely aren't quiet. Let's throw it into track and see what that feels like around some corners. Shifts in this. I actually haven't done the best job driving this car in this review, but it takes a little bit of time to get used to. The Camaro still feels like a muscle car. It still feels aggressive and raw and meaty, and it's gotten pretty refined and pretty good at handling and going around corners, and it's a pretty capable performance car, but at the same time it hasn't lost that excitement factor and that flair that make it just a little bit of a brute. Sixth gear, 75 miles an hour, sees about 1800 RPM. And you still actually have a little bit of torque. As far as the ergonomics in this car go, it's a little bit of a mess, but you do get used to it. It's funky. You've got cooled seats, heated seats there, which makes a little bit of sense. You've got your radio controls here. The screen for the infotainment is angled down, which I assume is to prevent reflections, but it's a little bit funky because you expect it to be flat, but it works. Your climate control is pretty intuitive, pretty easy to use. You've got a display graphic that tells you what temperature and fan speed setting you're on. And you do have a heads-up display, which we haven't really touched on yet. You can see a bunch of different info up there: speed limit, current speed, your Sirius XM or radio channels, direction with GPS, and there's even a kind of a performance gauge mode that shows you what RPM you're sitting at. Do a really good job showing you when red line comes up though, so I'm almost going to call that performance gauge useless. It's not like other GM performance products where it turns red or flashes or gives you a real clear indication of what RPM you're at. Other than that though, pretty comfortable on the highway. A little bit of road noise, a little bit of wind noise. But it's a sports car, and some of that is definitely to be expected. And I'm sure a lot of that is due in part to the run flat tires. Cool guys, well thanks for sticking around for this one. Hope you enjoyed the ride. We'll see you in another video later. Take it easy.